Do you have any recollections as to what was it that convinced your dad to say, okay, let's do it?
Bored, wanted something different to do, and him and John were always out monkeying around, and one thing led to another. I was only 16 at the time.
And that was cutting into your social time if you had to go over there.
Yeah, because after they got the pit going, on when it rained, it was my job to take a tin can and a bucket and dip out the puddles and then get in the hoopy and run it around and around and around and around until the track was dry.
Well, everybody's now used the term hoopy. Not everybody may know what that is.
All right, 4 wheels with a chassis.
And a motor.
And a motor. It's just an old pickup car or whatever that has been cut down, and you really don't have a cab. You just have the chassis and the wheels and the seat.
And the idea was to sort of flatten out the track, or just sort of...
To dry it out. My job was to make sure the track was dry.
Because it was Saturday night, there was some lighting. Can you describe where the light poles would have been on the racetrack?
Yes, on top of the hill as you're coming in, on the banks were on each end, and it was flat on the sides, okay, basically. I mean, it was up a little, but not much. And on the top is where the cars pulled in to park to watch the race, and the poles were centered at the top.
So how many poles would there be?
2, 4, 6. I think there was 6 or 8.
And that would have been tied into just by wire to the
They were electric, yeah. John did most of the wiring, and they went across the railroad tracks back of the stand towards Farmer's Mill. There was a pole that we got the electric from.
Well, talk about that night. What happened?
Well,
Horse boards.
yeah, the mother of the boy that wasn't getting what she thought he should have ran across her, went out there and went across and pulled
We couldn't prove that.
the plug.
So was it during a race?
Yes, the cars were going all around, and my brother-in-law John was down right in when he flagged, he was right down in with the cars. And yes, they were all going fast, and we were worried about John, because there was no lights, then on cars or nothing, and we were afraid he was going to get hit.
Did the race stop?
Well, they did. John did get them stopped.
So you have a job. You have a very important job as sort of the pit steward. Describe what you did.
Had fun.
I was 16.
I was 16 years old, and all those guys coming in, I mean, you could flirt and get away with it and not have to worry about it. I just ran the pits, that was it. And most gentlemen, I think probably it was easier because they all respected me for it. They probably had more respect for me being a teenage girl than they would a man. And of course, I got ribbed a lot, and I got carried away a lot from one end of the lot to the other, and stuff like that. But it was just fun.
So you said you got carried away.
Yeah, Merle Swift every time he came in the racetrack, he'd always, I had a barrel. That's all I had there was a barrel, and I was usually either standing on it or sitting on it. And he'd always grab me and carry me, because he always parked down towards the other end, and he'd always carry me to the other end of the pit. Every night, every time he came.
Physically?
Yep, physically.
Pick you up and carry you?
Pick me up, and away we'd go.
So you have 20, 25 cars would be a normal car count.
Right.
How do you even know how to send them out for the heats?
Well, basically, it was the announcer that would announce them over the speaker, and you just made sure they got out there.
Was there any method to the madness, or just
No, they just went.
So first come, first serve?
Sure, until they got out there and lined up, yeah.
Okay. And depending on the results of the heats, then did they get placed
That's how they placed for the rest of the heats, is what placed them for the rest of the races and the feature. And there was Bob Francis, Bill Finley, Floyd Thomas, Dick Gilbert, Roger Bowen, Johnny Whitehead, Dale Kincaid, Donnie Vanderkoy, Jim Hauser, Ted Hauser, Dayton Pierce, Bum Wright, Merle Swift, of course Russ. I'm not sure, because I went to other tracks, and I can't remember if Tom Dill raced up here and Tom Nundy did or not. I'm not sure on those two. And I couldn't remember the other ones. But Bill Hansen, of course, was always there with Russ. And, of course, Russ.
Who's the guy that seemingly had the most success?
Johnny Whitehead was always usually in the fights with Dale Kincaid. Those two were usually...
Yep.
I can remember one day after the race, they jumped out of their cars and they both ran down onto the tracks, again, one on each side of the track towards the center. Then Dale Kincaid was so bull-legged, it was funny to watch him being tall walking, and Johnny Whitehead, and they were going down there to kill each other. They were out there, boy, they were fit everything, and they got up there and they went nose to nose and they both chickened out. There was quite a few between the drivers over there, because they, especially with the banks, they'd come down off of they loved to ride that lower bank. When you come out of the pit, the biggest bank was on that end to your right, and they would come up and go over that, up the bank, and they'd come down into everybody. Matter of fact, John and my father tried to make them stop riding the bank because he was afraid somebody was going to get hurt. Went to 3 heats, I think, and then they had a powder puff. And was there another one before the feature?
Used to have either a consolation or a semifinal.
Yeah, semifinal, and then
So 6 or 7 races normally?
yeah. I think the powder puff was 25 and the feature was 50.
Was the powder puff a normal race? Were the women out there?
Oh, yes, we were.
When you say we, did you do that once?
Well, let's put it this way. My father forbid it, but Bum Wright one day we were talking in the pits, and he gave me the car just before we waited until the last, and I pulled out onto the track and made one lap around, and I went up onto the bank and come down, but I didn't roll it. I come back down okay, but my father made my brother-in-law stop the race, and he come out onto the track, and this is in front of everybody, dragged me out of the car and told everybody not to let me into another car.
That was father.
That was my
Dragged me out
father.
of the car one
Very
day.
embarrassing for a, let's see, I was probably 16.
Were the cars inspected, Russ?
No.
Did the cars get
No.
torn down? Did anybody say,
Well,
he's
yes,
cheating?
yes,
We
yes,
gotta...
yes,
Yeah, they've
yes,
done that. They did
yes.
that before,
We've
yeah.
had that done over to the track before when
That was
when they
after the fights,
That would cause
because
the
they figured
fights.
people
Yeah.
would...
somewhere I have a rule book.
There's a written rule book.
Yeah, I got a rule book,
That
but
would be-
yes, we've had cars there where they've tore them down before at the racetrack because they zooped
who
them
would
up.
have done the tearing down of the cars? Your
John.
dad or your...
John probably was a mechanic.
John was the mechanic? He probably would have checked them, right?
John was a jack of all trades.
Yeah, John could do
He did it
anything.
all.
Yeah, he could do anything.
What would be the reason that you might want to have a tear down? Was it engine or was
Yeah.
there some other?
Engine.
All
Engine.
Checking to see if somebody planed their heads down to
You
have
want
more
her to have a
compression.
picture of that.
It was like I started to say, Lo, at all the racetracks really around our area here got along good. I mean, they didn't try to outdo each other. They always worked together.
Probably got one
When
somewhere.
Sulphur Springs had a death in her family, our family went over and ran the race for them 1 week so they didn't have to close.
Very nice.
So, but they were all, I mean, it wasn't a lot of competition back then, I guess, like there is maybe nowadays, but they all got along.
1957, it all ended. Do you remember towards the end of the year when Dad came in and said, I've had it?
Well, the insurance went up 1.5 times, and it was hard. I mean, we weren't making a lot of money. We were just having fun. And the money had to be in before the race, and if it rained, you lost it, you
I
know.
got it.
They wouldn't give you credit or anything. So things were getting a little bit on the tight side, so Dad just couldn't swing it anymore.
What's your most vivid recollection of Sherman Raceway?
I met my husband. Matter of fact, I met him and married him in 2 months. And we've been married for 58 years.
Fantastic. Fantastic.